Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this powerful moment. You're here because you're ready to level up, you're ready to step into a new realm of influence, power, and connection. I'm honored to be with you today as we journey into the 4 stages that will transform your voice, your message, and your impact. This is your moment to rise, to speak with clarity, to command attention, to lead with heart. If you're ready, let's dive, and everything starts in the mind. The words you speak, the confidence you carry, the way people respond to you. All of it begins with what you believe about yourself. If you don't believe your voice matters, no amount of technique or training will save you. Because communication isn't a performance, it's an expression of identity. You don't speak to impress, you speak to express truth. That's where it all begins. Before the world listens to your words, it feels your energy. And that energy is shaped by your mindset. The first transformation happens when you decide that your voice is worthy of being heard. Not when someone gives you permission, not when you think you're ready. But the moment you decide that your message carries meaning, that decision changes everything. You stop chasing validation and start standing in conviction. You stop speaking to please and start speaking to impact. Because mastery doesn't begin with practice, it begins with belief. Most people try to fix their communication on the surface. They focus on words, gestures, and tone, but the real breakthrough happens underneath. The root, not the fruit. You can memorize a script, rehearse for hours, polish your delivery, and still sound uncertain if your inner dialogue is full of doubt. You can't project confidence when your thoughts are at war with your message. Mindset first means you clean your internal mirror before you try to reflect light outward. You have to reprogram the stories you tell yourself about your ability to communicate. Every time you say, "I'm not good at speaking," your mind obeys. Every time you say, "I get nervous," your body follows. Every word you attach to your identity becomes a command. So you must rewrite your internal script. Start saying, "I'm learning to communicate with clarity. I'm training my voice to influence. I'm becoming a powerful communicator." The brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. It simply builds what you believe. This isn't fake confidence. This is alignment. When your beliefs match your goals, your actions follow with power. But when your beliefs contradict your goals, your effort leaks energy. You'll always hesitate before speaking, overthink before acting, or hide behind excuses. Mastery demands that you upgrade your inner world before you perform in the outer world. You can't lead others with uncertainty still leading you. Mindset first also means accepting that communication is not a gift, it's a skill. Skills are earned. They're built through repetition, reflection, and correction. If you still think people are naturally good speakers, you'll never push through your discomfort. The truth is, every great communicator you admire once stumbled, once froze, once feared the sound of their own voice. The only difference is that they didn't quit in the discomfort stage. They reframed it. They saw every failure as feedback, every pause as progress, every repetition as a rehearsal for greatness. That's mindset. When you see communication as a skill, failure loses its sting. You no longer take mistakes personally. You simply adjust. You no longer avoid opportunities to speak. You seek them because every rep makes you stronger. Every conversation builds your fluency. Every message you deliver, no matter how small, sharpens your ability to connect. This mindset keeps you humble enough to learn and hungry enough to grow. And here's the truth. Communication mastery isn't about sounding perfect. It's about being real. People don't connect with perfection. They connect with presence. When your mindset is grounded in authenticity, you stop performing and start relating. You look people in the eye not because you were taught to, but because you genuinely want to connect. You listen to understand, not to respond. You speak to serve, not to be seen. That's when your words carry power, because they come from a place of conviction, not competition. The mindset of mastery demands that you stop being your own critic and start being your own coach. You don't talk down to yourself for stumbling. You guide yourself forward. You replace self-doubt with self-direction. When the mind shifts from judgment to improvement, growth accelerates. You begin to notice the small wins, the moment your voice doesn't shake, the time someone listens longer, the smile that signals you made an impact. You begin to collect progress instead of problems. Eventually, the mindset becomes muscle memory. Confidence no longer feels like a choice, it feels like your natural state. You walk into a room and your energy speaks before your mouth does. You stand taller, breathe slower, think clearer. You stop worrying about being liked and start focusing on being understood. That's the quiet power of a trained mind. So if you truly want to master communication, stop looking for quick tricks or shortcuts. Go deeper, start with the foundation, mindset first, train your thoughts before your tongue, lead your inner voice before you try to influence outer voices, because when you win the battle within, every conversation outside becomes effortless. Your words carry authority because they're rooted in clarity. Your presence commands attention because it's built on intention. That's how communication mastery begins, not in front of a camera or a crowd, but in the silence of your own mind, where you decide who you are and what your voice stands for. And once that decision is made, no stage, no audience, no obstacle can take it away from you. Mastery is not a moment. It's a process. No one wakes up one morning and suddenly becomes powerful at communicating. It happens through progression, one stage at a time, one layer built on the other, one level of awareness evolving into the next. The problem is most people want results without stages. They want to skip the climb and stand on the summit, but communication mastery doesn't work like that. It's not about skipping steps, it's about embracing them. Every stage refines you, every stage reveals you, and every stage prepares you for the next. The first stage is awareness. This is where the journey begins. You start to see communication as more than just talking. You begin to notice your patterns, the filler words, the nervous habits, the way your voice tightens when you doubt yourself. Awareness is uncomfortable because it exposes the gap between where you are and where you want to be. But that discomfort is sacred. It's the proof that growth has started. Most people run from this stage because it feels raw, but the ones who stay, who choose to look at themselves honestly, are the ones who evolve. You cannot fix what you refuse to see. Once awareness settles in, the second stage begins, application. This is where you start putting in the work. You practice clarity in your conversations. You consciously remove the noise from your language. You start to breathe before you speak. Pause before you rush. Listen before you reply. At this stage, you're not perfect. You'll mess up often. You'll replay moments in your mind where you wish you had said something better. But this is how skill is built, through consistent, intentional repetition. You begin to understand that communication is not just an art, it's a discipline. Every sentence becomes a training rep. Every silence becomes a mirror. Then comes the third stage, alignment. Here, you begin to connect your message with your identity. You start to sound like yourself. Your words no longer feel forced, they feel fluid. You stop trying to imitate the tone of others and begin to own your own rhythm. This is where authenticity blooms. You speak with confidence not because you're trying to appear confident, but because you finally believe what you're saying. You've earned your conviction. You've aligned your voice with your values. When your message and your mindset match, communication becomes magnetic. People listen not because your delivery is perfect, but because your presence is real. The fourth stage is mastery, not perfection, mastery. And the difference is everything. Perfection chases approval, mastery pursues impact. At this stage, you no longer focus on yourself. You focus on the message. You stop worrying about what people think and start thinking about what people feel. Your intention shifts from how do I sound to what do they receive. You speak less but say more. You use pauses as power. You adapt naturally to your audience because you've practiced enough to flow. You don't control the conversation, you lead it. You don't perform, you connect. But here's what most don't understand. These stages don't end. You don't reach mastery and stop learning. You cycle back. You revisit awareness to check your blind spots. You return to application to test new methods. You realign your message as you evolve. Mastery is movement, not a destination. It's an infinite loop of refinement. Because the moment you stop growing, your communication starts decaying. Stage by stage progression isn't just about improving skill, it's about deepening presence. Each stage pulls you closer to your authentic voice. You shed layers of fear, self-doubt, and ego until what's left is truth. That truth becomes your anchor in every conversation, every stage, every room. You no longer speak from insecurity, you speak from certainty. You no longer aim to impress, you aim to influence, and yet the most powerful part of this progression is patience. You cannot rush depth. You can't sprint through transformation. Each stage requires you to slow down and embody it fully. Growth has its rhythm. It takes time to rewire your reactions, strengthen your tone, expand your vocabulary of emotion. Those who rush lose depth. Those who stay consistent build substance, and substance always outlasts speed. The truth is, these stages test you as much as they train you. Awareness humbles your ego. Application challenges your consistency. Alignment demands your authenticity. Mastery reveals your purpose. Together, they transform you not just as a speaker, but as a leader, as a listener, as a human being capable of deep connection. So wherever you are in this journey, respect the stage you're in. Don't despise it because it's difficult. Don't compare it because it's slower than someone else's. You can't plant a seed today and expect a forest tomorrow. Communication mastery grows like nature, one season, one cycle, one stage at a time. Every awkward conversation, every failed attempt, every silent pause is shaping your evolution. Keep climbing, keep refining, keep aligning, because when you commit to the full progression, something powerful happens. You stop chasing confidence and start radiating it. Your voice no longer trembles, it teaches. Your message no longer fades, it resonates. You become the communicator others remember, not because you spoke the loudest, but because you spoke with presence, purpose, and precision. That's the reward of going stage by stage. You don't just learn how to communicate, you learn how to connect. You don't just build skill, you build legacy. And that legacy begins every time you choose to grow instead of rush, to practice instead of perform, and to move through each stage with patience, purpose, and power. Growth doesn't happen by accident. You don't stumble into mastery, you create it, one deliberate move at a time. Every great communicator you've ever admired didn't get there through luck. They got there through intentional practice. Every word they spoke, every pause they used, every gesture they made was trained through repetition with purpose. Practice alone doesn't change you, intentional practice does. It's not about doing more, it's about doing it right. Most people repeat the same mistakes, thinking that repetition equals growth. They speak more often but never improve. They talk louder but never connect deeper. They chase confidence but avoid correction. Real growth demands awareness inside the action. You must know what you're training for, what you're correcting, and what you're aiming to build. Intentional practice means you walk into every interaction with a purpose to test, to refine, to evolve. You treat every conversation like a rehearsal for impact. When you practice with intention, you stop hiding behind comfort. You seek out situations that stretch you. You speak in front of the mirror not to look good, but to study your micro-expressions, your tone, your energy. You record yourself not to criticize, but to analyze. You ask for feedback from those who will tell you the truth, not just what you want to hear. You become a student of your own communication. You stop waiting for opportunities and start creating them. That's how mastery begins, not on stage, but in the quiet, repetitive, focused work no one else sees. Intentional practice also means being fully present in the moment. It's not about going through the motions, it's about being conscious of every motion you go through. When you speak, you notice the rhythm of your breath, the weight of your pauses, the reaction in the listener's eyes. You start learning from every small signal. You stop rushing to the end of the sentence and begin to live inside the words. That awareness is what transforms good communication into powerful communication. Every time you practice, you're programming your nervous system. You're teaching your body how to stay calm under pressure, how to project certainty even when you feel the nerves. That's why practice must be intentional, because what you repeat becomes your reflex. If you rehearse fear, you'll speak with fear. If you rehearse hesitation, you'll deliver hesitation. But if you rehearse presence, precision, and purpose, that becomes your automatic response. It's not about pretending to be confident. It's about training confidence until it's your default state. The truth is, intentional practice isn't always fun. It's repetitive. It's uncomfortable. It exposes your flaws. But that's what separates the average from the exceptional. The average person avoids discomfort. The exceptional one studies it. When you miss a word, stumble on a phrase, or forget your point, you don't retreat, you refine. You ask yourself, why did that happen? What can I adjust next time? Every mistake becomes data. Every attempt becomes a test. You stop chasing perfection and start pursuing precision. One of the greatest shifts you'll make is realizing that practice doesn't just build skill, it builds identity. Each time you practice with focus, you reinforce the belief that you are becoming who you said you would be. You start showing up with more discipline, more resilience, more confidence. You move from hoping to growing. And the more you grow, the more natural your communication becomes. You're not performing, you're expressing. You're not trying to sound confident. You are confident because you've earned it through repetition with purpose. Intentional practice also requires emotional honesty. You have to face the fear that stops you from improving. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. Those fears don't disappear. You outwork them. You train your mind to stay grounded when your emotions want to run. You speak through the tremble, through the doubt, through the tension until your body learns that it's safe to express. Each time you do that, your courage compounds. You become mentally tougher, emotionally calmer, and spiritually louder. And here's the paradox. Intentional practice looks slow, but it multiplies results fast. Because you're not scattering your energy, you're channeling it. Every repetition counts, every deliberate effort compounds. What took you 10 tries before now takes one. You start to notice the difference between motion and mastery. You're no longer busy, you're effective. That's the reward of consistency with purpose. When you live with intentional practice, you don't just communicate better. You start carrying a different energy into everything you do. You walk into rooms differently. You listen with more patience. You speak with more conviction. You lead conversations instead of following them. People can feel your certainty before you even open your mouth. That's not ego. It's earned presence. It's what happens when you've built yourself through deliberate discipline. So keep showing up every day, every rep, every attempt. Practice like every word matters because it does. Practice like someone's breakthrough depends on your clarity because it might. Practice like you're building a legacy because you are. This isn't about perfection. It's about progress with purpose. Don't let fear stop you. Don't let comfort trap you. Every moment you practice with intention, you move one step closer to mastery. Because at the end of the day, communication mastery doesn't belong to those who talk the most. It belongs to those who practice the right way with focus, purpose, and heart. The ones who understand that growth is not in the performance, it's in the preparation. And when that preparation is done with intention, every word you speak becomes a weapon of influence, a bridge of connection, and a reflection of your evolution. Authenticity is the heartbeat of powerful communication. Presence is the pulse that keeps it alive. Without authenticity, your words sound hollow. Without presence, your message fades. You can have flawless delivery, perfect posture, and the best vocabulary in the world. But if your words don't come from a place of truth, people will feel it. Because human beings don't just listen with their ears, they listen with their instincts. They can sense whether you're speaking from alignment or acting from performance. Real influence begins when who you are, what you say, and how you say it all move as one. Authenticity isn't about being raw for attention, it's about being real for connection. You don't need to sound like anyone else. You don't need to mimic the tone or energy of another speaker. Your power begins the moment you stop trying to fit and start choosing to stand. The world doesn't need another copy. It needs your truth, and your truth becomes magnetic when you own it fully. You communicate best when you stop hiding behind what you think people want to hear and start sharing what they need to feel. Presence is the moment where everything aligns, the mind, the body, the energy. It's not just being physically there, it's being mentally and emotionally available. When you're truly present, you're not thinking about your next line or your past mistakes. You're here now, listening, connecting, responding. You're not distracted by how you look or how you sound. You're focused on who you're serving. Presence is the gift you give to the person in front of you. It says you matter, this moment matters, and that's what makes people listen. Not your perfection, but your attention. Most people lose authenticity the moment they step into performance mode. They try to impress rather than impact. They start thinking about their gestures, their tone, their image, and in doing so, they disconnect from their truth. When you perform, you filter. You start measuring your words to sound smart instead of being sincere. But the audience doesn't want a script. They want sincerity. They want to feel your conviction, not your composition. The most memorable communicators are not the ones who speak flawlessly. They are the ones who speak fearlessly. To be authentic, you have to be honest with yourself first. You must know your values, your beliefs, your story, because every message you deliver is an extension of who you are. When you haven't defined your truth, your words wander. But when you're grounded in who you are, your message carries weight. Authenticity doesn't mean oversharing or dramatizing your story. It means expressing from a place of alignment. It means your words match your actions, your tone matches your intent, and your presence matches your purpose. Presence takes practice. It's not something you switch on for a speech, it's something you live every day. It's in the way you listen when someone talks to you. It's in how you maintain eye contact without looking past people. It's in how you breathe when pressure rises, how you ground yourself before you speak, how you pause long enough for meaning to land. Presence is the art of being calm in the chaos, collected in the noise, centered in the moment. When you master presence, you control the atmosphere of any room you enter not through dominance, but through grounded confidence. People who lack authenticity often overcompensate with performance. They chase attention because they don't trust connection. They talk more trying to fill the silence when the silence itself holds power. But authenticity teaches you that you don't need to be loud to be heard. You just need to be real. You don't need to know everything. You just need to speak from what you've lived. When you speak truth, people feel safe around you. They stop evaluating you and start engaging with you. That's influence. Being authentic doesn't mean you'll be liked by everyone, and that's the point. The goal isn't approval, it's alignment. Some people won't resonate with your truth, and that's okay. Your authenticity will repel the wrong audience and attract the right one. The moment you try to please everyone, you dilute your power. But when you show up as your full self, unfiltered, grounded, real, you'll naturally draw the people who need your message most. Your voice isn't for everyone, and it's not supposed to be. It's for those who are ready to receive it. Authenticity and presence together create impact that lasts. One without the other loses balance. Authenticity without presence feels distant. Presence without authenticity feels empty. When you combine both, your words cut through noise. You create moments people remember, not because you performed perfectly, but because they felt something real. You gave them your full attention. You let your humanity speak louder than your technique. And that's where transformation begins. The most powerful communicators are not actors, they are truth. Tellers, they don't chase applause, they create awareness. They don't rush through words, they let silence breathe. They don't fake confidence, they embody it through preparation, reflection, and humility. They walk into a room and the energy shifts, not because they demand attention, but because they are fully present. Their presence speaks before their mouth does, so before you speak again, slow down, take a breath, ground yourself, ask, am I being real right now? Am I fully here? Let that awareness guide your words. Because the moment you stop performing and start being, your message becomes unstoppable. Your tone softens, but your impact deepens. Your presence commands attention without effort. That's the essence of authentic communication. It's not about showing off your voice, it's about showing up with your truth. And when you do that consistently, something powerful happens. People don't just hear you, they trust you. They follow your words because they feel your heart behind them. You no longer speak to prove anything, you speak to move something. You become the voice that brings clarity, calm, and conviction to every room you enter. That's what real presence feels like. That's what authenticity creates, and that's what turns communication into legacy. Legacy is not built in a moment. It is forged in the ripple of every word, every action, every connection you leave behind. Communication mastery is not just about speaking well. It is about leaving an imprint that outlasts the conversation. The impact of your voice extends beyond the room, beyond the moment, beyond the immediate applause. It becomes the energy that shapes perception, inspires action, and empowers others. Legacy impact is the stage where your communication transcends technique and becomes influence that endures. At this level, your focus shifts from self to others. You no longer speak to impress, to gain validation, or to assert dominance. You speak to empower. Every phrase, every pause, every tone is intentional. You consider the effect your words have on those who hear them. Because legacy impact is measured not by how much attention you capture, but by how deeply you touch lives. It is the difference between speaking to be heard and speaking to be remembered. You start understanding that true mastery of communication carries responsibility. Your words have weight, and with that weight comes influence. You begin to shape conversations, communities, and even culture. You do not underestimate the subtlety of a phrase or the power of timing. The lessons you deliver are layered, designed to inspire thought, provoke action, and encourage growth. You recognize that each interaction is an opportunity to leave a seed of transformation. At this stage, authenticity and presence are non-negotiable. You cannot leave a legacy if you are not real or fully engaged. Every word you speak must be aligned with who you are and what you stand for. People can detect insincerity, and it undermines influence instantly. Your credibility, your integrity, and your authenticity become the vessels through which your message travels. Legacy impact is about creating trust so profound that your audience absorbs your message because they believe in your presence, not just your words. Intentionality becomes your guiding principle. You do not communicate without purpose. Every conversation is a tool to shape outcomes, to foster understanding, and to elevate others. You begin to think in layers, the immediate impact of your words, the emotional resonance, and the long-term influence it carries. This layered approach transforms ordinary dialogue into a force for change. Every story you share, every example you provide, every lesson you teach is a deliberate effort to leave a lasting impression. Legacy impact also requires courage. Speaking with legacy in mind means addressing the uncomfortable, tackling the truths that matter, and risking disapproval for the sake of integrity. You no longer avoid difficult conversations for comfort. You embrace them for consequence. You recognize that growth rarely comes from easy dialogue. It comes from moments that challenge perception, disrupt complacency, and demand reflection. Your voice becomes a catalyst not just for change, but for transformation that resonates beyond the immediate interaction. You begin to see the bigger picture. Every communication becomes a part of a larger mission. Your words are threads in the fabric of influence, contributing to a culture, a movement, a vision that outlives you. Legacy impact is not temporary applause. It is the echo of wisdom, clarity, and empowerment that continues to shape decisions, behaviors, and mindsets long after you leave the room. This perspective shifts the way you speak, the way you listen, and the way you act. At this stage, refinement matters. You understand that mastery is never static. You continuously elevate your message, sharpen your delivery, and deepen your connection with your audience. Each interaction is a rehearsal for higher impact. You analyze what resonates, what shifts perception, and what fosters action. Your communication becomes intentional architecture designed to create bridges between knowledge, emotion, and influence. Legacy impact is ultimately about multiplication. It is about creating leaders, not followers. It is about inspiring others to find their voice, own their power, and contribute meaningfully. Every word you speak carries the potential to ignite someone else's journey. Your influence expands exponentially because you are not hoarding knowledge or insight. You are sharing it with purpose. By empowering others, you extend your legacy beyond your immediate reach, creating impact that compounds over time. This level of mastery demands patience and persistence. Legacy impact is not instantaneous. It is cultivated through consistency, integrity, and dedication. It requires showing up even when it's difficult, speaking truth even when it's unpopular, and serving others even when recognition is absent. Every intentional effort, every lesson delivered, every connection nurtured contributes to a legacy that outlives the moment. When you commit to legacy impact, your voice transforms from a tool into an instrument of change. People listen not merely because you speak well, but because they sense the depth of your purpose. Your presence becomes magnetic, your words meaningful, and your influence enduring. You no longer communicate for immediate gratification, you communicate for timeless effect. Every sentence, every pause, every story becomes a seed planted in the minds, hearts, and lives of others. At the end of the journey, legacy impact is the proof of your mastery. It is the evidence that your communication was not for self-interest, but for something greater. It is the measure of how many lives you elevated, how many perspectives you shifted, and how many minds you inspired to act. Your voice, once ordinary, becomes extraordinary through intention, authenticity, and presence. Legacy impact is the ultimate destination of communication mastery. It is where skill meets purpose, influence meets responsibility, and words meet enduring power. When you speak with legacy in mind, you leave more than a message, you leave transformation. And that transformation is the mark of true mastery. A presence, a voice, and a life that continue to influence, inspire, and elevate long after you've spoken. And so, my friends, you have the map. 4 stages to develop communication skills mastery. Adopt the mindset, walk the path, commit to the work, because your voice is your legacy. How you speak, how you connect will echo in lives you touch, doors you open, the world you build. So go ahead, speak your truth, own your story, amplify your presence, and make your mark. The world is waiting for your legacy. Thank you for being here, for committing to your voice, and to the journey ahead. Let's rise, let's speak, let's build our legacy together.